What's going on, everybody? What's going on? WTIM here. I am your host, Tad Al. So, it's been a little while. There's been a lot going on politically as to why I had not been on here. I was giving subscribers a chance to catch up with a lot of my content as well, so they could be, familiar with, what I have already put out and what my podcast is about. We have a really good subject today, um, and it is it's going to touch on a lot of things that are happening right here, right now, today. So, without further ado, we're going to jump right in here on it because I have been gone for about a month and a half, 2 months. So we're going to jump right back in it, and get this thing back going. I didn't want everybody to think that I was gone. I'm still here. So before we get to going with today's subject, I want everybody to know, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Feel free to weigh in. I'm monitoring anything that comes across the channel here. You can do a Q&A with me live, as we move forward. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. So without further ado, let's get going um, with what we got. Greatest of all time is the subject for tonight. What we're really battling against um, is what I am putting out here tonight. You know, uh, I sit back, I listen, and I watch. And I see, like, things that are happening. The Charlie Kirk situation took place since I've been gone. Um, you know, laws are being passed. Just a lot of things happening that you know don't go hand in hand with what we would like to see for our everyday lives. So I found myself getting a little frustrated, you know, and I get frustrated because I see a lot of people, they want to do like these peaceful presentations and things like that. That's the way to go about doing it and everything like that. But that's what we're here to talk about today. You know, um, when you look at, it's like we're begging a group of people to realize the error in their ways. When you're not going to get this out of people, you're not going to get people to realize the error of their ways. You're not going to get it because they know what they're doing. I was listening to one of my brothers on their podcast, David Banner, and it's like he said, we sit there and we make these little slogans like "I can't breathe" and stuff like that, and they know you can't breathe. That's the purpose of them putting their foot or knee in your throat because they're trying to shut your air off. They're trying to bring you into submission. I will never forget. Um, it's a slave movie, and I watched one slave movie since the slave movie that I'm about to refer to, and it was a slave movie with Will Smith. I can't really remember the name of that one. But the movie that really stopped me from watching slave movies was a movie called 12 Years a Slave. In this movie, 12 Years a Slave, it was a free black man and he was kidnapped. And being kidnapped, he said, "Hey, look, man, you don't understand. I'm a free man, and this isn't supposed to be happening right now. I'm free." And they said, "You're not free. You are an escaped slave from Georgia." He said, "No, no, 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 no. You got it all wrong. I'm a free man. They had him chained up and everything." He said, "No, you're not. I said you're an escaped slave from Georgia." And they pulled him to the ground and they beat him until he agreed with what they were saying, you know. And they said, well, do you got your freedom papers with you? You know, and it's just weird to have actually seen something like that, because when I look at things like what's going on with ICE and stuff like that, you know, people are like, look, I'm a citizen, I'm a U.S. citizen. Where are your papers at? I mean, I gotta go home and get no. Come on, you going to Ecuador? You know what I mean? Like, oh, you going your way to Nicaragua right now? You know, and I mean, this is people are being snatched away and put in prisons and stuff. You know, even with their children not even necessarily knowing where they're going. You know, like their children, you come home, your children come home, they don't know where their mom and dad is, don't know who got them, none of that. You know, they just know mom and dad was supposed to have been here by the time I got home. And they're not there. Why? Because they done got snatched up by these ICE people. But you gotta you gotta understand what's going on, folks. You know, first, you gotta realize there's nothing out here like our culture. Nothing. You know. And I think when we begin to understand that, we'll come from a different point of view when we're fighting against powers that be or people, things, systems that are trying to fight against us, you know. But no other culture is fought against like our culture. You know, that's why you have to know that there's nothing else like us out there. You know, we sit and through it all, we continue to survive. When you look back at through time, you know, we've always learned how to live, even in the face of an oppositional system. We've learned how to live separate of it and amongst ourselves, and it's always been a divide and conquer tactic with us. You know, they did it with the Indians. The Indians almost became extinct. You know, even when you look at most of the Indians today, majority of them are not even full blood Indian. You still have full blood African American. Well, you still have full blood Africans. You know, but over here in America, our bloodlines have pretty much been filtered with. You know, at some point throughout history, our history here in America. So, but there's no other culture like ours out here. Even with that, even just that little bit of African that's still in us, we still are able to move and continue forward and fight and stand against the oppression that goes against us. We're still able to do that. We set the bar to beat in most things, almost everything. Whether it's singing, singing, dancing, uh, whatever, basketball, football. Like we set the bar. When you look at, hey, my son, he was on a baseball team. I said, listen, let me tell you something. You are still you're in a sport where other cultures can still recognize themselves as being great on a baseball team. So what you have to understand, you have to be that much better. Just like if you look at golf, oh, uh Tiger Woods, like, oh, when he was going against some of the best golfers, quote unquote, the best golfers to ever take the course, and they looked at him, can he measure up, and he had so much power in hitting the ball, going forward and everything like that. He had that much more power when he was dealing with that, so he had that going for himself. And then when he would show that, hey, when he would show that he could, win and beat some of these greats that they said ever walked the golf course, then that is what the, that is what has like helped a lot of these other people and what they're doing. Um, I'm sorry, I was distracted. My son came walking in, and he knows that when I'm trying to do this. But anyhow, you know, uh, we set the bar for it. We set the bar for greatness. You don't hear, other cultures talk about, yeah, I beat that Chinese guy, you know, or yeah, I outran that Mexican. Like you don't hear them saying that when they're doing it. Yeah, it's they always refer, yeah, I beat Michael Jordan, or I beat Shakari Richardson. I was watching the Olympic race this last Olympics. And while the girl was running and she looked to the side at the other people that was running against her, and she gave a smirk on her face. And I was like, dang, I'm like, that's messed up. But I noticed there was a second place and a third place. The girl in third place just so happened to be Caucasian, but she came in third place and she was cheering, like, yes, and I'm like, I'm looking, I'm like, you lost the race, But to even come in that position was a sense of pride. And don't get me wrong, like even coming in third, I couldn't come in third place. So I mean, in that case, I guess you can cheer for yourself for even placing. I guess what's that, a bronze? So even placing, you still get a medal. It's not the gold, but I would have liked to got the bronze if I could run. Me too. I guess when you look at it, I would take a bronze medal. In the Olympics. I mean, I did win something. I was good enough to win that. So, but we set the bar for that. Even when we enter the sport of another culture, they get worried, and they try to say we aren't suitable, in that sport. They'll sit there and they'll say, hey, look, uh, can I've seen them actually make sports. Matter of fact, I was just watching ESPN a couple months ago, and I saw them doing a like they literally were doing a stone throwing contest, and I'm like, we're watching stone throwing. Like they were taking great big boulders and they were throwing it like in that movie Braveheart, And I'm like, wow, like they're really doing stone throwing. Like on ESPN, like, and they actually had tape measure people, referees, and everything. I'm like, this is crazy, man. Like, you really take that and you've made it. You're televising it, and then not only are you televising it, you've got all these people. So you're investing money into this because all of that costs money, you know. But it kills me how they come up with sports, even cornhole now. I like cornhole. Let me tell you, I have a cornhole set, but they actually started televising that, so they'll make up sports, because they can't actually, win at the sports that are out here. So, I feel a certain way about UFC fighting, like, and that's always been my thing, and I voiced it. I'm not trying to take anything away from martial arts. Like when you sit and you watch a movie like Jason Bourne and stuff like that, it's like, ooh, but I mean, at the end of the day, what is UFC fighting giving us that kickboxing and boxing wasn't giving us? I mean, like, I don't fighting. If you want a street fight, that's one thing. But if you have organized fighting, that's boxing. I mean, take these hands and let's get with it. And at the end of the day, if you can't win, and I believe that's why UFC was won, because now I can sit up here and I can bend your hand backwards, and then if you tap out, and then I can say you won. That's not winning a fight. I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe other people see it a different way, but I'm saying for me, it's like that's kind of weak. You know what I'm saying? That you would sit there and you would take and say, hey, I bent his finger all the way back. I won, So That's kind of a little funny to me, man. I mean, besides actually having it to where you got to work, because even when you have most of the people that came from UFC and they come into the boxing world, they can't do the boxing, so they can't, they can't last in there. Most of them have gotten knocked out. Even Conor McGregor didn't really have much going with Floyd Mayweather when that happened. So um, I mean, even when you look at jobs, on jobs and everything else, when we step up to the plate, positions, pay, even advancement, are withheld from our culture. They hold it back. This is why they fight against us, and special guidelines are created to prevent our ability to even go out for these positions. Like they'll sit there and they'll say, you know, uh, you got to have this degree, or you have to have this paperwork to be able to even apply for this job. You know, um, One of the things I noticed is they'll make positions and they'll, specifically like they might know you have something, but they'll add criteria for that job position. So whoever it is that they're actually making that position for, they can get it, And so that's been a problem throughout history, where we go for a job. I've seen where there's been jobs where, you know, a person with less job experience and everything than me, they brought him in, gave him the job, and gave him higher pay, same job I had, and they gave him higher pay, and then even put him above me as a supervisor. And I'm like, okay. And so when you sit here and you're looking at it and you're like, man, I'm not about to, take orders from this little kid, And I mean, but they're doing it because they want that person to prosper, over you, in fact, So even when it comes to, raises and promotions and things like that. You have to fight for that. So you got to think why are they fighting against you that hard? To keep you where you are. And it's because of our uniqueness. And they know if I let him get here, he's gonna go here, he's gonna go here, he's gonna go here. Next thing you know, he's in charge of me. And that's how that goes. I mean, that's the way it is all throughout history. That's the way it's been. And so even with some of the criteria that they make, they'll sit there and they'll say, "Hey, you're a felon, so you can't apply." Even right now, they ask you, do you have a criminal background? And it's just crazy to know how many African American convicted felons are withheld just from for running for president, even because you're supposed to be the commander in chief. So if you're the commander in chief and you're a convicted felon, you're not even supposed to be carrying a gun. So at the end of the day, then you have somebody that's Caucasian, convicted of 34 felonies. He not only runs but wins. And here it is. A lot of us, we're barely allowed to have a water pistol. You know what I'm saying? To let alone to sit up here and run for president as a felon. I've got a felony. If I even put my name on the ballot, it would have came up about me having no. He's a convicted felon, but no, but this he had 34. So provisions are made for things that they want. But then when it comes to you, like I said before, they'll make criteria for you to not be able to run and make it into certain positions or even necessarily apply for it. And these are things you got to look out for. Um, and one of the things that I try to get people to realize, there has never been a peaceful exchange of power in history. Never. You know, um, just like there's never been a peaceful action of enslavement. I mean, there's never been that. Just like now, the fight against the current situation is only peaceful because we keep trying to, to go about this peacefully. That's the only reason it's peaceful right now. While they could care less. I mean, like literally, we keep doing it. We say, well, let's do it peaceful. Let's have a peaceful protest. Let's do it this way. And while they could care less and keep talking, taking your civil liberties away from you until you have no power, and then here comes enslavement. This is that. I mean, that's how it's always gone through history. So it's never been peaceful, either or. The exchange of power has never been peaceful. Look at what just happened in the last election. It was not a peaceful exchange of power. They had to leave the office. They rioted. Everybody remember November 6th. And he wasn't leaving. Oh, you gotta leave. And it was about to be a whole thing. But guess what? He got up out of there. The rest of the people that was in the White House, their lives was in danger. like, come on, y'all. There's all through all of this. So, and what I mean by this peaceful exchange of power is we're at a point now where there has to be an exchange of power, y'all. Because what we're dealing with, even with this whole, hey, government shutdown. These are ideas of men. This has nothing to do with me and you and the welfare of the people of this country. This is them. These are ideas of politicians who want their way. I don't care what side. I won't even vote no more unless it's an independent person. So coming from me, you independent people that can go up here and run for president, these people that got billions and billions of dollars who want to be right by other people, start running for president, man. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to be a Republican or a Democrat just to run for president. Campaign. Put your campaign and stuff out there and all of that, just do it by the rules and campaign and tell people, hey, look, I don't know what they talking about. I'm here to help the people. And I mean, we've been stuck so much on this. I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat thing. That's their thing. That's what they do. And as I said before, history repeats itself. Like this gerrymandering stuff, ICE patrols, and all of that, it's all set up for what's to come. Even the tearing down a part of the White House that they did. They're putting up a whole banquet hall. That's not somebody that's leaving. That I'm getting tucked in. You don't build something, you don't make an addition to your house so you can turn around and leave your house. No, you got plans for this for years to come, years and years and years. Unless you're a real estate agent or property, you got a whole bunch of properties and you just buy properties, fix them up, and then rent them out. That's the only way you're gonna do something like that. But if you're living here, you don't sit up here and say, "Hey, I think I'm gonna put this banquet hall over here on the east wing of my house, and then I'm gonna move." No, that's not. No, they're getting prepared. They're getting tucked in. And this is what's happening. That's not a temporary move. And it's funny. This is the funny thing for me. It's funny that how once all the hate from the Republican Party, Trump, Charlie Kirk, and the rest of all this bigotry and stuff that took place, it's funny how many of these Caucasians stood together with them. But before, they were actually hiding how they truly felt. They'd be right in front of you. And now you have people like Trump and Charlie Kirk and everybody out there stating with a microphone how they feel, what they think. And then they're like, yeah, man, I love Trump. Yeah, man. And it's what they stand for. That's the whole thing. So I mean, what you're dealing with, even when you listen to Charlie Kirk, the stuff that he was saying, I was peeping him out a couple weeks ago. And I'm like, listen to the stuff this dude is saying. And you mean to sit here and tell me you can turn this person around to try to see your point of view? This is what you're fighting for. You're fighting for, somebody to hear you out and understand that they're being wrong to you and the people around you. They're getting, especially right now. There's no checks and balances right now. So they're getting exactly what they want. Mandatory, and while you sitting here trying to have peaceful protests and everything else like that, they moving right along on with their plans. They care less. They said up there, we don't want you here in Chicago with your ICE and everything. Well, we coming with them anyway. That's how they did. And they went right on up there with them. They Los Angeles went right on over there with them. You know, uh, it was a couple other places. That the gerrymandering stuff that they're talking about, voting redistricting stuff. They went right on with it. Now you fighting back, trying to redistrict with them. I mean, like, look, man, this first it should have never even got to this. But the lack of, and I'm not sitting up here saying use violence. That's the furthest thing from what I'm saying. The only thing I'm trying to tell people is it's time for an exchange of power. Babylon fell, Egypt fell, Rome fell. It's time for a change of power because we're not getting any better. And even if you want to look at this thing from a biblical standpoint, it's coming. It's coming. It doesn't matter how you want to look at it. This is all part of history. And hey, look, I'm not trying to push the Bible on nobody, but it is written. All of this stuff that's happening, it's written. It's written down to say this is to come. This is what's coming. So I was just telling a family member the other day, hey, look, honestly, they could really go ahead, like the whole mark of the beast thing and everything else like that. They could really go ahead and usher that part of the Bible on in here. They really could. Hey, look, I'll tell you what, you ain't got to worry about ICE or nothing else. Why don't you just go ahead and take this mark of the beast, and we good. And they could almost slide it in just like that without even trying to cover it up. Take this mark. You know what I'm saying? That probably. I mean, like it's getting there. They could bring that right on in because the stuff that they're doing, like I said before, there's kids. They got videos showing kids coming home from school not even knowing where their parents are. Their parents been taken back and already been taken to jail, and within a week or two, been shipped back to Nicaragua. So I mean, like, and the kid is still here. So I mean, this is what's happening. So, and they could do this. They could do this. Thanks for the likes, people. They could do this. They could do this right here, right now. They could usher this stuff in. They could say, "This, you ain't got to worry about it. Just take this mark that we handing out. This is going. You agree to what we're doing here and how we're trying to get this country to start operating. They can push that right now. And I mean, like, so look at what we're giving up as people, as a people as a whole. This is what we're giving up. And you want to still sit here and keep trying to have a peaceful presentation. Like, I mean, like, my son came in earlier making all kind of noise. I usually would have started this up, but it's too important. This one right here was too important for me to start over. I had to keep it going. And because it's real, this is what we have right here, right now, today. This is what we have. You got a man that's sitting up here as a president that believes he really believes he's top dog. That's all he want is you to bow down to him. You know, he said, "I'm not a king. I'm not. I work hard for this country." That's man. Listen, it's not about all of that. It's about what you want from everybody else. Just like that, you using the Department of Justice to battle against the people who have opposed you. He's not making. He's making war on his own people. They want to say, "Well, we Americans, we love America, and all of this and all that." You're hurting your own people. And it's the Democrats. Listen, the Republicans have the House, the Republicans have the Senate, the Republicans have the presidency. Don't you can't ever sit up here and say that it's the Democrats that's doing this. It's the Democrats that's fighting back against what you're doing. They're trying to. So I'm not Democrat or Republican. I'm independent. I'm for God. That's who I'm for. You know, and that might cause a problem on my podcast with a lot of people, but so what? You heard it. You heard it right from me. That's who I'm for. I'm for God, man. So, you know, all these people out here, and because in the end, that's who's gonna win. That's who's gonna win. And you know, the fight is already settled. You know, so nothing's really going on that hasn't already been set to happen. It's just, you know, what are we gonna do? How are we gonna go about doing it? You know, so but anyway, you know, listen, I'm not gonna keep y'all all night. You know, I had something to say, you know, rise up, y'all, and speak your mind. You know, I'm still waiting for people to come on here and do live with me while I do my podcast. It's all right. It didn't happen tonight, but I know it's gonna happen soon. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I think I had like 4 or 5 people on here at once. I thank y'all for that too, you know. But I'm gonna keep pushing this situation with you all. Um, you know, I'm gonna keep bringing the truth to you. It's nothing but the truth. You know, it's the raw truth, but it's the truth. You know, I thank y'all for coming out tonight and tuning in and sharing your time with me. And again, don't forget to like and subscribe my channel. And I love you all. I'm your host, Tad Al, and I'm out of here. Mwah.